Kadosh, Boker Tov, Masechet Yevamot Daf Kaf Amud Aleph 120a1. If you remember, we were talking about yesterday a very interesting question. We saw in the Mishnah that what happens right now if the woman did the yibum to the two brothers, and then the brothers died without children as well. So now the Tanakama said, as Surili said, they're not allowed to get to the shul. Rabbi Lazar says that once you permitted them to the Yevamos, you permitted them also to Kol Adam as well. You permitted them to everybody. So we had a doubt, which means that we had a question. What was the question? The question that we asked ourselves was, what's the reasoning of Rabbi Lazar that he says that once they were permitted to the Yevamos, they're going to be permitted to everybody? Was it because that one tzara is permitted to testify about her friend, right? The other tzara, meaning one co-wife is permitted to testify about the other co-wife? Or do we say it's because that she's not going to mess up herself, which means that she's not going to do something to mess up herself? We asked what's a famina. Is that what happens if the other one gets married first, which means the tzara gets married first or not? So Tashema, this is where we're going to start today's daf. Tashema, we are 2, 4, 5 lines down, right on Kufka, 5 lines down. Tashema. Rabbi Lazar says, once they were permitted to the Yevamos, they were permitted to everybody. So it's going to be good if you're going to tell me now, right, that she's not going to be mekalkel her friend, right? Because that means in order not to, she's not going to be mekalkel herself to be mekalkel her friend. And that's why that only if they already got married to the Yavam, so we permit them to get married also to the shuk. Why? If she got married to the Yavam, on basis, what basis? That the husband died. So she's not going to get married to the Yavam if the husband died. Okay? But if you're going to tell me now it's because one tzara could testify about the other tzara, which means one co-wife could testify about the other co-wife. Even though she did not get married, right, to the Yavam, you're going to still permit her to go to the shuk, right? How could that be? But rather we learned from here, the reasoning of Rabbi Lazar is because each one got married to the Yavam, al-pi the edut of themselves. And therefore she's not going to be mekalkel herself to kedei lekalkel chaverta, which means here it comes out, it's coming out of machloket. Do we say this concept of tamot nafshim plishtim or not? Meaning, okay, a person wants to mess somebody over, that's fine. But would they destroy themselves at kedekach? Would they mess themselves up so much that now look how many ramifications would happen? It's very difficult. Okay, so says the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar, the Divrem Kamal. What are you talking about? Maybe Rabbi Elazar was only going in the Shita of the Chachamim. And he comes and he says like this, according to me, Sarami Dale Chaverta. One tzara could come and she could testify about what? For her friend. Even though she doesn't get married, which means even though she did not get married, we get her married. So that's fine. But according to you, you should still be modeh. Yeah, the what? At least whoever it's going to be, you have to be modeh. That if she is going to get married, so therefore, right, we are going to get them married then. Because if they actually got married, I'll be this, the dut, right, the testimony. So she's not going to be mekalkel herself. Rabbanan, but according to the Rabbanan, that means it comes out that that's a machlok of Rabbi Lazar and Chachamim. That what? According to Chachamim, tamon nafshim pelishtim, and according to Rabbi Lazar, she's not going to be mekalkel et nafsha. And let's continue. Right, we're going to try to bring a proof now to answer up the safek of Rabbi Lazar from somewhere else. Imagine a woman goes with her, it's she herself and the husband to be at the yam. And she comes back and she says, Mebali. Yeah, she took care of him, as they say, yeah? She took care of him. So what happens? Comes back, he's dead. Yeah, what happens now? Right? Tinaseh, she can get married. She can take a ketubah as well. Tzarata asura, but tzara is asura. Rabbi Lazar says, if according to this testimony, you just permitted her to get married, so now tzarata is also permitted to get married. Why? Because obviously it has to be that tzara mi'ida lechaverta, right? That means one tzara can testify about another tzara. So obviously it has to be a reason. Says the Gemara, no, it might be not the reasoning why. Maybe you have to say, according to Lazar, maybe because she was permitted to get married through her own testimony. So then the tzara is also permitted to get married through the testimony. Why? Not because one tzara is permitted to testify about another one, but rather because, right, if she does actually get married, she's not going to be mekalkelet. That's not. So it says the Gemara, one second, why don't we be choshesh that she came with the get? And really, be'emet, the husband did not die, but he divorced her. But she's hiding the get. And therefore she comes and she says in front of everybody that the husband died. Why is she saying it? So why is she saying this? She's got a master plan, right? Remember, she already hates, right, the other one. She comes with the husband, they go on vacation, right? They got into an argument, right? Because she left for a little bit of a time and he gets all offended. Yeah. So what happens is that what? Is that all of a sudden he comes and he says, you know what? Go. He gives her a get. She gets all upset. She says, okay, fine. Okay, no problem. Takes the passport, burns the passport, comes back. Yeah, no, he's going to be there another, I don't know how long, whatever time exactly. Yeah, and all of a sudden, right, what happens is that she comes back immediately and she testifies the husband is dead. So now the tzara comes, she's going to remarry. Now, why did she do this entire thing? Right? She already has a get. She's fine. For herself, she's okay. But it's to be mekabkel the tzara. Right? She doesn't want that the tzara is still married to the husband, not her. Over her dead body. So what's she gonna? She comes, boom. So says the Gemara, no. There's idin civil Israel. You're right. If she got married to Israel, then in Achanami, then maybe it could be that she's doing this whole game. But what are we doing with here? She got married to a Kohen. Now remember, if she got divorced, can she get married to a Kohen? Obviously not. So therefore, the fact that she got married to a Kohen, that's the biggest proof that she didn't get a divorce and she's not hiding the get. Because if not, then she wouldn't be allowed to. So because of that, we're actually going to believe her, right? As we already said. And therefore, it comes out. So since Rabbi Elazar holds that tzara is not suspected to be mekalkelet atzma, so therefore he's going to teach you the what, you could bring the proof from here, that really be'emet, right? Her, since she's permitted to get married, so too the other one is permitted to get married. So the maskana, we don't have an answer. What is the shita of Rabbi Elazar? But it doesn't matter. But we pass on the chachamim that a tzara is never going to become believed because of her friend, even if she did get married through herself. So if you pass on the chachamim, because it could be a concept of tamonoshim krishtim, there's not really much to talk. Says the Mishnah. So Mishnah Kukaf Amud Aleph. En me'idin ela al partzuf panim imachotem. Which means like this. Somebody wants to come back and they want to say the guy died. How can they testify? What? What do they have to see? Right? They have to see a death certificate. They have to see that he actually died. What exactly does he have to see? So here it says, En me'idin, they're not going to testify. El al partzuf panim imachotem. So it has to be the face with the nose. Yeah, which means that they have to see him with the chotem. Remember that. Okay? Now he says, even though he's got other simanim on the body or in his clothing, right? Doesn't matter. You need to see the face. Yeah, the face with the nose. Okay? Says, when do you testify? Only after the person mamash passes away. Even they saw him mamash like all cut up or whatever it is, vitzalu, or right, he was hung, right? The chaya ochelet, or even if they saw that the mamash chaya, while an animal is eating him up, yeah, we cannot say it. And midin, right? So we cannot say it because maybe it could have been saved. Meaning we come and we see a lion jump on it. We're going to say, okay, Kaddish, the man, there's nothing to do. But it could be that maybe he's alive. right? And midin elad shlosha yamin. They're only going to testify within 3 days of seeing the gufa of the dead. But after 3 days, we're going to suspect that the face changed, and therefore it's not the same person. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava omer, lo kol ha'adam v'lo kol ha'makom v'lo kol ha'sha'ot shavot. Like why? It all depends, because sometimes you have that the body, starts off before, later. It all depends where it was, winter, summer, right? Shade in the sun. So therefore, you can't just say 3 days, not 3 days. Everything depends upon the human being, right? And the fatashana and everything. So therefore, you can't give a blanket statement of how many days and how many days and so on and so on. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara. Taru Rabbanan. We learned to the Braita. Padachat velo partzuf, right? It has to be also the padachat velo partzuf panim, right? Partzuf panim velo padachat. What happens if it's only the forehead but not the face, or the face and not the forehead? And midinat shnehem imachoten. So the Braita says it has to be both. That means you need the padachat, which is the metzach, the forehead, the partzuf, the panim with the nose. It says Vite Maravkan, and somebody says Kana. Maikra, what is a pasuk? The pasuk says Hakarat Penehem Anetava. What does that mean? So you're not going to be me'id, you're not going to be Hakarat. It has to be Hakarat only through the Yat Panim and not through the Yat Shargufo. Meaning that even if you see the rest of the body and you already knew that he had this birthmark and this type of I don't know what, and then, no. It has to be, right, ala panim. Yeah. So he says, Abba bar Marta, tehu Abba bar Yume, kavumasku bebe, veshkaluta zuze. So what happened was Abba bar Marta, which he is actually Abba bar Yume, right? It could be that Marta was maybe the mother, and Yume was his father, whichever was. It says, Havamaska bebe, veshkaluta zuze. So the Reshakola, which means, right? He was obligated money to the Resh Kaluta. He didn't have money to pay. So Aiti Kida. So they brought Shava, Tabek Vlayata, right? They put it on a matlit, Tabek Bapute, they put it on his metzach, and then Chalav Kamaymu, right? Velo Beshakruha. He went in front of them and they weren't able to recognize him. So he basically put like a matlit ktana on his metzach. And then afterwards, when he went, then all he had to do was put something on his metzach, and they don't recognize him. Right? And it's also all you do. Sometimes you only have to cover the forehead. And just by covering the forehead, it's already enough that now all of a sudden, he can't go in front of them. If he owes the money, it's a problem. Right? What happened? He was able to come in, they didn't recognize him. Why? He had his forehead covered. Yeah. The 2 dots says, Afal pi sheyeh simanim. Right? Even though there's simanim in the goof and the kelim, in the body or in the clothing, it doesn't help. Are you going to tell me that simanim are not al-chachad d'oraita, it's only d'rabanan? Or meaning we have a contradiction. Mitzao, what happens right now if a shaliach was made to take a get to a woman and it was lost? You found the get, kashur bekis, if it was tied to a money pouch or a kibbutz tabak, or between his utensils. Even if it's going to be after a long time, it's still going to be a kosher get. So you see from here that a siman does help. Rabbi says, no, what are you talking about? This other question. How did Eliezer ben Mahavai? One of them is Eliezer ben Mahavai, one of them is Rabbanan. The time was going to the Braita. En midin al pi shuma. What does that mean? You're not going to testify about a person that passed away al pi shuma. Shuma is like a yabelet that he had in his body. So let's say a person had a wart or a certain thing in his body. Eliezer ben Mahavai omer midin. No, you could. Okay? We're not arguing. The more savar simanim is doraita, simanim d'Rabbanan. So Rava comes and he says, "Bechule alma simanim doraita." No, really, bemet simanim is doraita. Here, though, right, what we're talking about is the shuma, that place in the body, right? That of the ben gilo, which means that anybody that was born in the same mazal maybe has the same thing. So more savar shuma mitzvah ben gilo. One of them holds that there is the shuma also in the same ben gilo, somebody that was born in the same mazal. More savar in the mitzvah ben gilo. Ikadami, or some people say Here we're talking about something which could change up to death, right? Which means that it could change, whether it's colors, whether it's size, whether it's everything. So more so your third way of explaining the machloket. So we're trying to explain the machloket. Either it is because at the end of the day it could change after death, or maybe somebody else could happen if he was born in the same mazal, right? Or third explanation, but here we're talking about a shuma, which is a siman mubhak. What does that mean? Is it considered a siman mubhak? More savar that one of them, comes and he holds that the shuma is a siman mubhak, and therefore you can come and you can actually permit a woman getting married again just up via shuma. So imagine you come and you see that this guy had a certain type of award. All you saw was the award. You didn't see the face. You'll be able to testify according to this siman mubhak. More savar, it's not a siman mubhak. Okay, fine. It says the Gemara, we're having a machloket here. Do we say that it's considered a siman mubhak? Not a siman mubhak. That siman is doraita. Haktanim said, why can you not be matim for the fact that you have clothing or the kelim? So says the Gemara, before, right? The waroch, the boots, right? He says like this: when you talk about the body, whether it's going to be that he's tall or that he's short, right? He says it's not considered simanim at all, because there's a lot of people that are tall or short, and therefore, even though that this person, the husband, is tall or short or whatever it is, you can't say that it's a siman. Kelav chayshinu l'sheila. Meaning like this: what type of siman? The guy was tall. He said, "You know how many tall people there?" The guy was short. Even short people are. That's not good enough. You understand? You need even the exact size. You understand? You don't need thousands of people of the exact size. You put right now 5'10". You don't need thousands of people in the United States. It could be millions. It doesn't help. So that's what he's saying. It does not help anything about tall or short. And what about the clothing? Maybe lent it out. Right? They took it. They stole it. No, the clothing is not going to show you anything. They said clothing is not going to show you anything. As the Gemara, it says, one second. If you're already going to suspect that people lend out, whether it's going to be lend out clothing or lend out things, so then how do you return a chamor, right, with simanei ukaf, which means, sometimes you find a chamor, yeah, you run a chamor, huh? You find a chamor, yeah. You find a chamor, yeah, and all of a sudden what happens? You want to return it. So you come and you say, listen, this chamor is got, this type of kippah. I mean, sorry. It's in a saddle. Yeah? So now I know my goods. You want to return it to the person. You understand? So you want to return it to the person. 1 second. Maybe lent out, right, the saddle, right? Maybe lent it out. So how are you going to return the chamor? You understand? How you can return it. At the end of the day, right, there's choshash. Yeah? So he says the Gemara, no. Ad kedi kach, the saddle, they're not going to lend it out. Right? The Sa'o kashur bekis uvarneki utabat. So the Gemara says, okay. So now if you come and you find the get, remember, a shaliach lost the get to give to the guy's wife. And all of a sudden he found it tied up, whether it's to the keys, uvarneki tabat. So how's he going to give it back? So says the Gemara, tabat chayish muvyu. Keys uvarneki venachash inche velo mishi. He says no. He says, only if you found the get on these things can you give it back. Why? A tabat that he's always choshesh for ziyut, right? Because maybe all of a sudden he's going to change it. So therefore he comes and he says, right, we're not going to come and lend out. That means you'll never lend out a ring. Imagine right now a whole woman, she's going to lend out her wedding ring, the wedding band, right? The engagement ring. Never. He's trying to keep. What about a wallet? The same thing. Who's going to lend out a wallet? It doesn't, especially that he says that if a person comes and he's taking, the wallet, it's like he's taking the mazal of the machine. So you never lend out your wallet. It's like you're giving him your mazal. You understand? Because of that, you never lend it out. So because of that, if you come and you found that your wallet was tied up to this get, so therefore, even though you found the get, I don't know how long afterwards, doesn't matter. It's still good siman that you could take it and you could still give it to her. Right? Why? Because we're not going to start suspecting the bebet because it's a good siman. From you can answer is, he says, what are you talking about? He says that the kelim, right? He comes and he says, we're talking about the kelim are white or reddish, which means, right, that since right now the kelim are going to be white or red. So since he's got a whole bunch of clothing, right? So they're not considered a siman. Because you know how many clothing, it's like somebody comes and he says, okay, he's wearing a white shirt. Saying, okay, you know how many people are wearing a white shirt. You understand? It's right? So it's not a good thing. Okay, next. We came and we said that even if you came and you saw him all cut up with wounds and everything, until the guy's not dead, you do not testify. You actually say that the guy that's all cut up in pieces, he's going to live. Or meaning we have a contradiction. A person does not be mitameh until he's actually dies. Even if he's Yevamos, which means he's not going to be mitameh. He's not going to live. Meaning at the end of the day, the guy's all cut up. It's like he's like a Tosef. When you're going to suspect, so Rabbi is another question. How does Shimon Lazar? One is Shimon Lazar, and one is Rabbanan. Tell you who's going to write to me. You could testify about the person, right? That he's all cut up and he's going to die, but not the one that he's actually hanging, right? Until they actually see his death. Shimon Lazar Omer, did not know why. Only kavot, because he could actually be cured, right? With a klima techet, something very, very hot, which means they come and they put a hot metal on it, and that will actually come and make him live. Yeah? So therefore, he could be, there's a refuah. So says the Gemara, can you actually come and say that this is Shimon Lazar? Aktani say, look at the Sefer. Masechet Astia. There was a story in Astia. Astia usually they say is Asia, but it's Astia. He says over here, right, that somebody that came and they put him, right? And he says, Layam. That means they took him with a chevel in the up. All of a sudden they came and when they wanted to bring him up, they only brought up his leg. So they took him down and then they brought him up, only his leg. That's the only thing that came back, his leg. If it was from the berech upwards, so then he could get married again. But she could get married again, sorry. Right? Why? Because for sure he's going to die from his wound. But if it's from the kovalu mata, lo tinaseh, he can still live. Meaning they plucked up his leg. How much of the leg was there? If they plucked up the leg and there's more than the berech umala, which is more than the knee upward, so then for sure the guy's going to die. Right? Why? Because all of a sudden the leg was detached. He's there in the water. The guy's going to die. Well, then we'll talk about it. What? The water is different. Water is different. The water makes it worse, which means that it doesn't let you cure. So because of that, if it gets hurt in the water, it's a completely different story. He went saw this Rabbi, he went and he cut off, right, the regel of the gamal, and he didn't stop whining, right, which means, right, he died immediately, right, even with the bichlal, mamash, like, that's it. So he says, since he died so quickly, we're going to say that he couldn't have cured. So same thing. But Rabbi, he says, no, he was very weak, gamal. So it's a very weak animal. Kaddish, you're right. Okay? Rava says, the sakim melubenet. No, what happened was that he cut with a sakim melubenet, so then the dibra called. And that's according to everybody, which means that if it's going to be with a sakim, which is mamash like a hot, boiling hot thing, emalasot. You understand that he said over here, because it was at the time of the siatzma, which means if right now he could still live if it was with a boiling hot sword. If it wasn't with a boiling hot sword, right? Now they saw a lion or like what you said, an alligator, whatever it is, eating them up. That's only a place where the neshama does not come out. But if it's going to be a place where the neshama comes out, meidin, then we are going to testify that the guy is going to die, right? Because basically, whatever, let's say it's a leg, whatever it is, but it's not okay, he can still live. But if it's going to be that the guy has his head, right? He's got about part of the body, whatever that's in, unless it's heart, is it? So it's something different. If they did shechita to the majority of the simanim, right, and then the guy ran away, we're going to testify. Why? This for sure. So it says again, so he gave a hint. And he said, give a get to his life. They could give it, right? So says the Gemara, even after the chitut simanim is still considered chai, but he's for sure going to die. Meaning right now he's still alive. They did shechita to him. They cut two, or the majority of the two simanim. He says he's still going to die though. Or they also said, right? He's going to go to galut. So why don't we learn shachat shnayim or shnayim? He doesn't go to galut. Right? But maybe he died because of something else. So you see from here that it's not that shchitat, the two simanim is for sure going to kill him. So that was already said. No, we're going to suspect that maybe the wind, since his neck is all revealed and everything, so we're going to suspect that that's what's going to cause him to die. Or maybe he himself, he caused his own death. So because he's going to cause his own death, so therefore that's maybe now what's the difference between them? We're just going to get to the two dots. He says the shachte beveita the shisha perkes. The shechita in a house which is all closed, that there's no wind, no nothing, and he was mefarkes. So because of that, lefila should be shown that the reason why he doesn't go to the speaks maybe the ruach. So here he does go to galut because there's no ruach. According to the second one, maybe he was mekarev mitato. The opposite, the more that he was jumping around, that was mekarev mitato. Inami, or maybe the shachte bibara, where they did shechita to him outside, they lo pirkes, but he wasn't mefarkes. So because of the ruach, it's true the ruach maybe caused him to die earlier, but because of piputz, he wasn't mefarkes, so he was not mekarev his own nita. Tomorrow we continue with Hashem with